Imagine this. The world you live in is about to be turned upside down by an idea. An idea so powerful that it will change the way people think about money, trade, and how countries work together. This idea comes from a man named Adam Smith, who lived a long time ago, but his words are still relevant today. His story is a roller coaster of unexpected twists and turns, and it all starts with a book that was supposed to be a failure but ended up changing the world. Adam Smith was a professor in Glasgow, Scotland, in the 18th century. He was known for his deep thinking and his ability to explain complex ideas in a way that people could understand. But when his book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, was published, he was bracing for the worst. He thought it would be ignored, maybe even laughed at. Instead, it was celebrated. People were talking about it everywhere, and it made him famous. One of the people who read the book was Charles Townshend, a powerful man in England. Townshend was so impressed that he decided to hire Smith as a tutor for his stepson, the young Duke of Buccleuch. This was a big deal because it meant Smith would travel around Europe, meet important people, and have the time and money to write more. It also meant he would get to experience different cultures and see how other countries worked, which would be crucial for his next big project. During their travels, Smith visited France, where he met a group of thinkers called the Physiocrats. These guys were revolutionizing the way people thought about economics. They believed that the wealth of a nation came from its land, and that the best way to increase wealth was to let the free market do its thing without government interference. They also had some radical ideas about taxes and how to help the poor. Smith was fascinated by their ideas and started to incorporate them into his own thinking. But Smith wasn't just a tourist. He was a keen observer and a deep thinker. He noticed things that others might miss. For example, he saw how the French peasants were much poorer than their Scottish counterparts. He noticed the wooden shoes and the lack of basic amenities. He realized that the French system of taxation was crushing the poor, and he believed that economic freedom was the key to improving their lives. After 2.5 years of traveling, Smith returned to Scotland. He settled back in his hometown of Kirkcaldy and started writing his most famous work, The Wealth of Nations. This book was a game changer. It was the first modern book on economics, and it laid out the principles of free trade and the invisible hand of the market. Smith argued that when people are free to pursue their own interests, the economy as a whole benefits. He also talked about the importance of specialization and division of labor, which he had observed in a pin factory. He saw how each worker did a specific task, and this made the whole process more efficient. The book was published in 1776, the same year as the American Declaration of Independence. This was no coincidence. Smith was a big supporter of the American colonies and believed that they were a laboratory for testing the principles of economic freedom. He used examples from the American colonies to illustrate his ideas, and his book had a big impact on the Founding Fathers. They were also thinking about how to build a new nation based on the principles of liberty and economic freedom. The book was a huge success. It sold out quickly and was praised by some of the most famous thinkers of the time, including David Hume and Edward Gibbon. Even though it was a dense and complex book, it was clear and persuasive. It became the foundation of modern economics and influenced generations of economists, politicians, and business leaders. But the story doesn't end there. Smith's ideas were so powerful that they became the basis for what we now call classical economics. This school of thought dominated economics for over a century, and it was taught in universities around the world. But as the world changed, so did the way people thought about economics. In the early 20th century, a man named John Maynard Keynes came along and challenged some of Smith's ideas. Keynes was a brilliant economist and a member of the Bloomsbury Group, a group of artists and writers who were known for their progressive ideas. Keynes saw the world differently from Smith. He believed that the government had a role to play in managing the economy, especially during times of crisis. He argued that during a recession, the government should spend money to stimulate the economy and create jobs. This was a radical idea at the time, but it made sense in the context of the Great Depression, which was causing widespread suffering. Keynes' ideas were put into practice during the New Deal in the United States and the post-World War II period in Europe. His theories, known as Keynesian economics, became the dominant framework for economic policy for decades. They were based on the idea that the government could, and should intervene to stabilize the economy and promote growth. But the story of economics is one of constant evolution. In the late 20th century, a new school of thought emerged, known as neoclassical economics. This school of thought combined elements of classical economics with new mathematical models and empirical research. It emphasized the role of markets and the importance of individual rationality. It also led to the development of new fields like behavioral economics, which looks at how people actually make economic decisions, not just how they should make them. Today, the world of economics is more complex and diverse than ever. There are many different schools of thought, and economists are still debating the best way to manage the economy. Some believe in the power of free markets, while others argue for more government intervention. Some focus on the global economy, while others look at local communities. But one thing is clear: the ideas of Adam Smith and John Maynard Keynes are still at the heart of these debates. So what can we learn from this story? First, ideas have the power to change the world. Adam Smith's ideas about free trade and the invisible hand of the market have shaped the way we think about economics. John Maynard Keynes' ideas about government intervention have influenced economic policy for decades. Second, the world is always changing, and our understanding of economics must change with it. What worked in the past may not work in the future. Third, the study of economics is not just about numbers and theories. It's about people and how they live their lives. It's about improving the well-being of individuals and communities. In the end, the story of Adam Smith and John Maynard Keynes is a reminder that the world of economics is a dynamic and ever-evolving field. It's a field that requires not just technical expertise, but also a deep understanding of human behavior and the social context in which economic decisions are made. It's a field that is always open to new ideas and new ways of thinking. And it's a field that has the potential to make a real difference in the world.